Hi, and welcome to Conscious Action for Truth, the Cat in Cat Chats. And today is March 19th, 2021, and the three of us, Bethesda Cat, Rosie Cat, and myself, Mahara Cat, are going to have a little talk about the crisis at the border. There is a clear and present danger looming, and it needs to be discussed, brought into the open. From what I'm hearing, the Biden regime is not allowing reporters down there, so something is up with that. And we're also hearing that there are upwards of 13,000 children called unaccompanied minors being warehoused there. So the situation is pretty dire. There are hundreds of thousands coming over. We don't know who they are. We do know that many of them are cartel and gang members. We are also finding out that many of them are not from Mexico. They come from the Middle East, from the Sudan, from Libya. So, and we have no way of knowing where they're going or what they are going to be up to. So, for those who think that having open borders is a cool thing to do, for one thing, there's no other country except the few in Europe that have been overrun by refugees. They don't allow people just to go over their borders. Try going into Mexico. You won't be able to. They're very strict about who comes in their country for a good reason. So I would say to some of the people who still think that open borders are a good idea, I would suggest you take all the locks off your house and leave your house open to whoever would like to come in. And I wonder how soon it would be before you put the locks back on and put a wall around. It's important that we know who's coming into our house, just as it's important we know who's coming into our country. Now, a part of the agenda of this flood of illegals is to get more voters for the Democrat Party, because they will be given voting rights immediately. They're also being given a lot of financial assistance, which is not being given to U.S. citizens. The other issue, and to me the really big issue, is the so-called unaccompanied minors. These children are trafficked children. They're children that are being kidnapped or sold to be taken across the border. I hear it's $3,200 per kid to get them across the border. After that, they are sold into trafficking rings. This is well documented. In fact, we're going to link below an amazing interview with a former ICE agent who was shot 3 times by the cartels and survived. His partner was killed. He has witnessed exactly what happens to these children, and he talks about it. So this issue is huge. Our southern border is being overrun, and if you don't think it'll affect you, these people don't stay at the border. They go to different cities. They go to sanctuary cities, of which our city, Santa Fe, is one, Albuquerque's one, Taos is one. This is all in New Mexico, where we are. And what you'll notice about these cities are the crime rates are rising. I think Albuquerque has one of the highest rates of crime of cities across America. Santa Fe crime rates are also going up. We have a homeless problem. Why are the homeless not being taken care of? And yet these people crossing the border illegally are. so there's a lot to be discussed. As I said, this child trafficking problem is the glue that holds what we like to call the deep state together. It is what is holding together the tyranny that has spread across the world. The Chinese Communist Party are tied with the cartels in Mexico. So we thought we'd discuss some of this today, and let me hand the ball over to you, Bethesda Cat, for some of your wisdom and insight into this situation of clear and present danger we find ourselves in. But first, a word from our sponsor, Gordon Rocket Company. Once in a great while, a product never before seen will be invented. Like the Truman Show perspective that, quote, everything has been discovered already. It would be unlikely that an entirely revolutionary new device could be created at this advanced time. That would be as likely as creating a fire that did not have smoke. The Gordon Rocket Stove is a new rocket-type, wood-fired cook stove design featuring ultra-high efficiency, smoke-free operation, and 3 cooking positions. Created for camping, backyard barbecue, and home preparedness, the GRS is a life-saving, expedition-grade field kitchen capable of high-volume food production in disaster situations and relief operations. You can get 10% off today with the code CATCHATS at www.gordonrocketcompany.com.
What I'm learning is that open borders are magnets for criminals, especially for child sex trafficking, drug trafficking, organ harvesting, drug running, which are some of the top, billion-dollar businesses globally. I was reading recently about Nigerian girls 15 and under are put on what they called slave ships and shipped to Italy, where there's no border control, and the Nigerian mafia works with the Italian mafia to process these girls over the Italian border, and they're lost. They're gone with no control on either side. Nobody's keeping track of them even coming in. Nobody's greeting them. They become slaves to the mafia because they're under the radar. One reason that Americans and other countries love legal immigration is not just for us, but for the people entering our country. They have the same rights and privileges as we do. So these very young girls, then they're told they have to pay back a 5,000 pounds, for their room and board or whatever. And so they're like lifelong slaves, sex slaves. And the same thing at our American borders is that there's so much more incentive for, mafia, coyotes, other criminals to steal children if they know they can bring them over the American border. There's not going to be an issue. So poor women and children are so much in these countries like Mexico and South America, and they're coming from everywhere. They're so much more vulnerable when there's an open border, because if you can traffic the children through, they're much more likely to be stolen. Now, if there's a strong border at the U.S., the kidnappers are going to be much less likely to kidnap children if they can't get them over the border. Because the thing about America is there's so much money here that they can sell these children into child sex trafficking organizations. I think a lot of us are learning about, the pedophile elite here, that there's a lot of money here, and they can sell the children easily. And if the border is open, they're much more apt to steal children to traffic. Now, if the wall was there, they're going to think twice. And there's a lot of poor women, probably, they're like, you know, they're being told that their child's going to a better life, or, you know, there's going to be some benefit for their children. But once they're over the border with no record, the child's pretty much lost. You know, in Santa Fe, I knew a couple of women who had been trafficked over the border, and that there's now in Santa Fe, there's an organization to help them. Because once you get in, you lose all your resources, you know, and they threaten you and they withhold food and they say they're going to kill your relatives. There's so many different ways that these coyote, mafia, criminal types hold children captive. And, you know, you're really, they're all vulnerable, even if they're taken from American homes, stolen or trafficked off the street. The children that come from foreign countries are just absolutely powerless because they don't have family, they don't have money, they don't have they can't even speak the language. So these girls are the most, and boys are the most vulnerable of all the ones that come over the border. You know, my feeling is that, and, you know, I've seen it reported that the Democrats open the borders to get votes. They are so low. You know, most of us know, and I think even the left knows that Donald Trump won the election. I mean, most people in America voted for him. So they're also releasing criminals from jails now, and opening the border. Just it's profit. I don't think there's anything altruistic about it. I don't think they're really caring about the real, true people that need help. I don't see that at all. I see it's all about profit. It's about drugs and children, organ harvesting, and drug running. I've never had a sense from the left that they weaponize it and they politicize it. I don't really see true caring, compassion, because that would involve some sort of structure. So, you know, that has been kind of my focus, is the child trafficking aspect of it. And, you know, it's deeply, deeply disturbing to me to think that those children are just flowing over the border right now with no guardian.
Yep, I totally agree. That's the biggest. There's so many issues with the border, like you said. Yeah. There's the boats, there's the children, there's the drugs, so much. So Rosie Cat, what's your take on it?
Well, it's multifaceted for me. Let me just, if I can for a moment, give a bigger picture perhaps about what might be going on so people understand. And I know that a common response that people have is, well, that's the border, that's hundreds of miles away, that's not my business. I've never had a kid, it's not my business. Well, guess what, folks? It is your business. You were a child once. Remember that. You were a child once, and this is a time where we really ought to embrace humanity as our kindred spirits. We're all one big global family. I know that might trigger some people, but I just want to say that, number one. Number two is that, okay, we're having, to perhaps create this wall, this border, so that this infraction of human life and dignity doesn't happen to us. Drug smugglers, drug cartels, organ harvesting, child trafficking, none of that. Human trafficking. I mean, this is a real deal, people. This actually happens, not just on our borders, but also locally in New Mexico, in other states. I myself personally have worked with families and children for at least 40 years. And I can, just off the top of my head, think of 4 individuals that I have worked very, very, very closely with for a long period of time who have either been exposed to ritual abuse, human or sex trafficking, sex abuse, and mind control. So it does happen in your own neighborhood. This is not the time for us to, walk away and just say, oh no, I've got enough to handle. I know you're all overwhelmed right now, but this is an opportunity for us, again, to embrace the dignity of our human family and to embrace the dignity of everybody as a kindred spirit. So that's kind of a big picture scope of it. Like, yeah, I know that every one of you could take 1 minute out of your day, whether you're going out for a walk or you're sitting down at your couch or you're at your table, and you could talk about this, or you could pray about this, and you could meditate about this. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it that you don't have time. That's BS. You do have time to put in some thoughtfulness, some compassion, some love, some energy into correcting this imbalance. A lot of things are out of balance right now. A lot of things are disconnected right now. And we need to work very, very hard, very diligently, very lovingly at creating connection, creating balance, creating justice, creating harmony. And this is one very specific area. Again, I know that you may think, oh, it's hundreds of miles away. I have nothing to do with that. Well, you do. And again, remember that you are all a child once. So that's one thing I want to say. I could go on, but I'm going to let one of you say something to all that I just said so I can regroup.
Yeah. So, Rosie, what would you say? I mean, so many people are saying, well, yes, the borders should be open because we care so much about all these children, these poor children. They should be able to come here.
The question is, what is happening to those children who are coming here unattended by no parents? They're just like pushed across the border. 6 and 7-year-olds are pushed across the border. Okay, you're on your own.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. It's one thing to say that, we could talk about why the parents do that. It's another thing to say, okay, we've received those children. What's happening? What is happening with those children? Are we really being caring? Are we really being altruistic in our intentions, in our thoughts of those children?
Yeah, the fact is that it's rarely the parents pushing the children across the border. Those children have been either kidnapped or sold by the parents. $3,200 a piece, I hear. $3,200 a piece for a child getting a child across the border. So I watched an interview recently with a former ICE agent, a very courageous man, and he had direct experience with busting up some of these cartel operations and what they do with these children. So a child as young as 6 or younger, anywhere actually from a few months old to a young teenager, can be raped multiple times in one night. And it's happening. So it's happening all over America. So when people say, well, it's the border there, those kids don't stay at the border. They'll stay in those facilities for a while, and then they're gone. And like you said, Bethesda, they're gone. They're lost. Unless they're rescued. And there's been more and more apprehension and more busts of these cartels. But it's going to get way worse again now with what this Biden regime is doing, which in my opinion, is criminal to open the borders like this, because the criminals are having a field day. The cartels are loving it. They are loving it. So it has to stop. We have to take back our sovereignty as a country, just as we have to take back our sovereignty as human beings. With the whole vaccine thing, we are being threatened. Our sovereignty is being threatened on every level, on a personal level and on a national level. And do we have it in us as Americans to remember who we are and how our country was founded? Do we have it in us to remember our sovereignty and to stand up for that? That's the question. I believe that what's happening now, we are being shown two timelines, two options. We can reclaim our sovereignty and reclaim our nation and rebuild our nation, or we can give it up, eliminate the borders, become part of the New World Order, run by the UN, the World Health Organization, and bottom line by the CCP. Give away every freedom we have. This is what I see. We're being faced with this. What are you going to choose?
What and how? I mean, again, I know a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed and helpless and not one more issue. I just can't handle it. This is really big. This is really deep. I mean, what happens to those kids after they're trafficked? Why is that happening? Why is that going on? What is out of balance in our world that this is happening? Why is that happening? That's one thing to look at.
Yeah. I mean, the corruption in America with the judicial system, the police system, foster care, family court. I just got done reading the Franklin scandal, which was like a 500-page book about the boys from Boytown that were trafficked by Larry King, who ran the Franklin savings. And he trafficked them to Washington, D.C., to, known politicians, and then brought them back to Boys Town. They were brought in and out of Boys Town with the permission, of some of the people that were supposed to be protecting those children. And that's only one. There's like thousands of stories of American children that are trafficked and cannot get justice. When they testify, they're told they're drug addicts or they're incompetent. So there's a system of politicians, judges, lawyers, police, social services, all the way down to the foster care homes that are all involved in the trafficking. And so is the media. The media plays a big role in covering this up. And so it's a cancer that's throughout our whole system. So these kids coming over the border, if our own kids don't have a chance in the court systems here, what chance are these foreign kids going to have? They're going to disappear. They're absolutely going to disappear, and then they'll be killed. They'll be killed in a ritual sacrifice or just killed off, because one person that survived in our system was Kathy O'Brien, who wrote about the sex slave business in the U.S. She survived. But it took a lot, it took another CIA agent to rescue her. And but anyway, our children don't stand much of a chance. What happened to Johnny, that other boy from Nebraska? He was kidnapped, and the police wouldn't follow through. There was all kinds of leads. There was testimony. There was someone that even said, I was there, I was part of the kidnapping. They wouldn't investigate. So there's kickbacks for everybody in this business. And that's even our American children don't have a chance. Just imagine the kids coming over the border.
Yeah, and here in New Mexico, I just got reminded of, we have the Epstein Ranch here that was used And I hear it was used for experimentation on children. So we are a border state that's often forgotten. Everybody talks about Texas and Arizona and California. And Texas and Arizona, I'm hearing, are about to do something about the flood coming across. But our state, no. Our governor wants New Mexico to be the new Ellis Island. She is encouraging more. And I wonder why there is no investigation of Epstein Ranch.
Yeah. Again, I want to, say thank you to all of you, and myself included, for helping to raise the awareness about this, and not to be apathetic and not to lack motivation. That's not our intention. We do need to garner our own courage, our own way of reaching out to this injustice, to touching this injustice, and start to find ways to turn it back around. If I would love to hear Bethesda or Mahara, Kat, from either one of you two, something about that. How can we turn this energy? I mean, awareness is one thing, but how can we turn it from fear into action? I want people to leave this interview hearing us talk, feeling motivated to take some sort of action.
Well, my whole philosophy in one of the books I'm writing is the origin of it all is matricide. If you can kill off the mother or the loving parent, either economically, financially, spiritually, if you can get rid of her or kill her off, then her children are vulnerable. Whether they're American children, and that's a lot of the American children as they come from traumatized families, and they don't have one loving parent. They're shipped all over the place. They end up homeless. So my feeling on it is that we need to address the epidemic of matricide in our world, which is disempowering the mother energy, whether it's in the male or the female, the mother energy. If those women in South America or Mexico, they had economic security, or even if men still protected women, that's another thing, protecting women, protecting the family. If you have a strong, solid family that the mother's protected, the children's protected, it makes the police, judges, all those sharks just waiting to get your child, it makes them powerless. So my feeling is whenever you can empower the family of origin, especially the mother or the matriarch of the family, then children are protected. And from my opinion, it goes down to that we in our courts, in our police, all, politically, economically, educationally, we diss the mother, the matriarch, and the loving parent is the one that's going to protect that child at all costs. And what I've seen in courts is they're now starting to favor the abusive parent, and that's because they can get those kids into the trafficking system. What that means in practical, it's loaded. It's loaded, and that's that's for kids in America. I'm doing it by writing about it and trying to raise awareness.
Yeah. So changing just even our attitude about our own mothers, about mothers in general, about families in general. I think it's very wise that many indigenous cultures, they put women and children in the center. They know that women and children are to be the center. They're, not that all activities are to revolve around them, but they know that by strengthening the mothers, that also, just like you said, Bethesda, that strengthens the child, that strengthens the family. So finding ways that we can.
I think even the vaccine process we're going through is, it's service workers first. And who are the service workers in this country? It's mostly all poor women. So they're the ones that are supposed to get the vaccine first. They're usually the ones taking care of the family. So it's just another way to kill off poor women, Blacks. The way they're delegating it is very racist. They think they're giving Blacks the opportunity to be first. I see it that they're experimenting on the Black community again. And women generally are the service workers of this country, whether it's nursing or food or whatever. And that it's another form of matricide, in my opinion, is the way they're delegating this vaccine or trying to.
So knowing what our rights are, our constitutional rights,
Yeah.
Very wise. There are ways to get around this still, folks.
Yeah, and if women care about their children, educate yourself on the vaccine because you need to be around. Or men who, the one parent is usually the mothering energy, and whoever that person is, they have to be around to protect their children. So really look into this, really educate yourself about the vaccine.
And we're at the tail end of probably 30, 40 years of the family being denigrated. And there's a reason for that. There's a total reason. All of this, what we're seeing right now with the Biden regime, and I think it's a huge wake-up call, is we're seeing what it's going to look like, the beginning of the New World Order, the beginning of totalitarianism in America. So as far as action, depending on where you are, the first thing is to become aware of the truth of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Stop listening to the mainstream media because they are not telling you the truth. Start researching for yourself. Start thinking for yourself. Common sense. Start putting two and two together. I believe that all of this is going to end up being an amazing blessing for our country and for the world and for all of us, because sometimes you have to be taken to the precipice to take action. Taken to the precipice of destruction of everything you know, everything you've grown up with. And then you take action. And whatever that action is for you, the right action.
Yeah.
It's going to be different for everyone. But honoring family, honoring each other, honoring our sovereignty, understanding that we are the ones to take care of our health, understanding we have immune systems, all of that. So with that, we have to finish today. I loved our conversation. There's so much to this. It's so important. Thank you guys. That was really fun.